Well, welcome to 2017, folks. Yes, another one in the bucket. And as we peer our heads out of the bucket, what do we see? Well, hopefully they see the same as I do, blue sky. Well, at least that's what I try and see most of the time. Now, in that blue sky, there's always going to be that odd dark cloud that floats past, but the Chamber will be working hard all year long to shoo them away as best we possibly can. I promised myself I was going to be more positive this year, a little less crotchety and much more pleasant. And of course, to you, I will be. I promise that. And I always promise that because, of course, I always have loved my members. I've always loved my peers in the chamber world. And I always have some great things to say about those amazing entrepreneurs in our community that just keep making it better all the time. But some people, well, they cause their own problems. Some deserve all we can muster up. And to those, as much as I'm a really very nice guy, I'm sorry. Now, isn't that typically Canadian? You're probably going to get exactly what you deserve. So let's kick off the year with the one topic that everyone's been talking about, Premier Wins Cap and Trade. January 1st, the program came into law. The concept may be a little bit different from what the reality is. Who really knows? I'm not quite sure. I assumed it was if you were a high carbon emitter, you would buy credits from those who are not high emitters. And the government was kind of going to be the mediator in between to make sure everything was fair. The object being that high carbon emitters would find it to be smart to invest in technology that would reduce their carbon emission, and eventually they'd be below the cap and everybody would be happy. Apparently, that's not what it is at all. Instead, it's simply increasing the cost of all consumable products that are considered to be carbon resources. I don't get that, but okay, January 1st, gas in your car went up 5 cents a liter. Something of the same for home heating fuels. And coal? Well, be happy you're not on coal, unless you are. It is doubling. Now, this added tax gets fed to the Ontario government, and the Ontario government buys credits against their emissions. I'm not quite understanding about that, but apparently from places where emissions are lower than the cap we have. Guess what? Hundreds of millions of dollars are going to go to California and Quebec. So how much is this really? Well, let's look at it. Today's January the 5th. To date, just on the added 5 cents on a liter of gas for your car, nothing else, the provincial government has collected in excess of $10 million. Over the course of this year, about $750 million will be collected, charged to you and me just for gas in our car, and we'll head to California or Quebec. Okay, I may have misunderstood exactly how it works. It might not be exactly that way, but believe me, maybe the customers aren't California and Quebec, or maybe they are, in fact, someone else. It seems no one really knows, and well, it's just appearing more and more like just another tax. Now we have our local city council as well. I suffered through a couple of different task forces and committees this past year. And I suffered through a 2017 budget process as well. Not sure what they heard, but I can tell you it wasn't me. Maybe I should have told them that I was there representing nearly 2,000 businesses in our community. Maybe I should have told them that I was also there representing the 40,000 plus employees that work in those businesses and who would really love to continue working in those businesses. Maybe then their ears would have perked up. I've been there on council and I know the tough choices that have to be made. But what I also know is how the system works. In my 10 years on city council, I made it my business to know how City Hall worked, how it is financed, and what is important to know as a city councilor. So obviously, as usual, I approached City Council with my presentation with the utmost dignity and respect. But after they finished approving a 3.61% increase, it was evident they really didn't want my advice, and now I'm suspect on whether they even want my support. The mayor keeps telling us that it's tough dealing with the high costs of running a city. We're struggling to keep the service levels where they are. Well, Mr. Mayor, your revenue is not earned. It's taken. It is not based on a return for value that we as the taxpayers get. It's extracted out of us, even if we don't use the service we're paying for. So consider that, and maybe then it will be clear that the people's voices should carry the weight. Property tax is the most unfair tax that there is. is based on the perceived ability to pay rather than the actual ability to pay. I know, Mr. Mayor, you believe, as I do, you should get a bigger slice of the provincial and federal tax pie. But have you looked out the window lately? The province, well, it's virtually bankrupt, and the recent report out of the federal government's own finance department says deficits as far as the eye can see. 2050, I believe, was their estimate. And by the way, while you're looking out that window, have a really good hard look at the majority of working folks in this community whose wages haven't moved in years. Check out the businesses just hanging on, and now, thanks to the Premier's new How Do I Grab Some More Money program, disguised as I'm doing some global good program, these small businesses may not be able to make it by the time you put the icing on the cake in the form of a 3.6% property tax increase. I think it would be wise for us to all be on the same page here. I say this over and over again, but no one seems to listen. Where is it you think all the money comes from? Well, it comes from a business transaction. No one gets a paycheck. No one collects tax. No one charges tax. There is nothing for anyone unless a business transaction takes place. You cannot keep piling on costs to businesses and assume that they will just keep absorbing it and keep filling the government's pockets full of money. Seems to be a trend in Canada right now. Government does what it wants without listening to the people that they serve. Well, that's what happened recently in the United States of America. And I'm thinking listening is a much better option. I'm Greg DeRocher, still waiting for someone to listen, even just a little.